All right, so are you ready to dive into something really mind-expanding?
I'm ready.
Today we're going to be talking about how to gain knowledge of higher worlds.
Higher worlds, all right.
Everybody wants to get in there
Yeah.
and explore beyond the everyday.
Right.
But we're not talking about vague mystical pronouncements or anything like that.
No.
We're going to be getting really specific
Right.
with Rudolf Steiner's How to Know Higher Worlds.
That's what makes Steiner so fascinating.
Yeah.
He's so clear and methodical
Right.
about it.
Yeah.
He lays out like a path, a method for developing what he calls clairvoyant consciousness.
Yeah.
It's not just fluffy stuff.
Yeah.
It's about becoming a seer.
Yeah.
Someone who can actually perceive these subtle realms.
So less like channeling spirits or something like that, more
Yeah.
like developing our own inner supervision.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, but how do we even begin?
That's the question, right?
Where do we start on this path?
Well, the first thing to know is that Steiner's approach is all about inner development.
Right.
He's very clear about this.
Yeah.
This is not about
Great.
instant mystical experiences or
Okay.
relying on external forces or anything.
Okay.
He says we already have everything we need within us.
Oh.
It's latent, like a seed
Mm-hmm.
that needs the right conditions to sprout.
I see.
And he lays out 3 key stages to cultivate that growth: preparation, illumination, and initiation.
Okay, so no shortcuts. We got to put in the work.
Exactly.
All right, tell me more about this first stage, preparation. What does that involve?
It's think of it like training for a marathon.
Okay.
You wouldn't jump into the race without preparing your body, right? Same goes for accessing higher worlds.
Yeah.
Preparation is about refining our thinking and feeling,
Okay.
making them more sensitive, like tuning an instrument to pick up subtler frequencies.
Okay. So less about seeing things with our physical eyes.
Right.
More about developing a different kind of perception.
Exactly.
Okay, but what does that look like in practice?
One exercise that Steiner gives in the book that I find really interesting is contemplating growth and decay in nature.
Okay.
But he doesn't mean just casually looking at a flower.
Right.
He means really immersing yourself in the experience.
Yeah.
Really feel the energy of something blossoming.
Okay.
That sun-like force driving it upward.
Yeah.
And then contrast that with the feeling of something withering.
I see.
A kind of drawing inward, a moon-like force.
Okay, I'm trying to picture this. I'm in the garden.
Okay.
I'm feeling the warmth of the sun on a blooming rose.
Yeah.
Then I'm noticing the dry leaves crumbling at its base.
Okay.
What's the point of this contrast?
It's not about gaining knowledge intellectually,
Right.
but through feeling.
Okay.
Steiner says this contrast awakens our spiritual perception of color.
Oh, okay.
Now, before you think,
Yeah.
we'll talk about literal color. Remember, this is about subtle perception.
So not suddenly seeing auras?
No, it's more about perceiving the spiritual forces behind the physical form.
Okay.
It's interesting he describes seeing the blue of stones, the green of plants.
But
These are
spiritual color.
spiritual colors,
Gotcha.
felt more than physically seen,
Okay.
sensing the unique vibrational quality of each thing.
Okay, starting to grasp this,
Good.
feeling the essence rather than just seeing the surface.
Yeah.
But how does the spiritual color thing connect to the whole higher worlds idea?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Steiner describes these perceptions as arising from our lotus flowers starting to open.
Wait a second. Lotus flowers inside us?
I know it sounds a little crazy, right?
Yeah, what's that all about?
These aren't physical flowers, obviously,
It's okay.
but centers of subtle energy and perception
Okay.
located in our etheric body.
Okay.
Things that the blueprint of energy
Mhm.
that underlies the physical body.
Okay.
Each lotus flower corresponds to a specific area,
Oh.
like the heart, the larynx. And as we refine our thinking and feeling,
Yeah.
these centers start to awaken.
So it's like we have these dormant psychic organs.
You could say that.
And exercises like the one we talked about
Yes.
help to activate them.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And as these lotus flowers open,
Yeah.
we become more receptive to the subtle realms,
Okay.
those higher worlds that Steiner talks about.
This is already making me want to go spend more time in nature,
Yes.
feeling those subtle energies.
That's a good start.
But Steiner doesn't just talk about blissful flower opening experiences, right?
Right.
There's also something about trials, almost like tests along the way.
Ah, yes, the trials.
Yeah.
This is where things get a bit more intense.
Ah.
Remember, this is an inner journey.
Okay.
So we're not talking about external challenges or anything.
Right.
These trials are inner confrontations
Okay.
that arise naturally as we progress.
Mm-hmm.
They test our courage, our self-control, our ability to act from higher insight, not just our usual impulses.
Mm-hmm. So it's like the further we go on this path,
Yes.
the higher the stakes get.
In a way, yes.
What do these trials actually look like?
Steiner describes a few key ones.
Okay.
There's the fire trial,
Fire trial.
where you confront your deepest fears
Oh,
and anxieties.
okay.
It's not about becoming fearless,
Right.
but
yeah.
about learning to act even when fear is present.
Oh, okay.
He also talks about the water trial,
Outer trial.
where you have to navigate solely from inner guidance
Oh, yeah.
without any external support.
Oh, that sounds intense.
Yeah.
That fire trial especially. It's
Uh-huh.
like facing your own personal demons.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
To progress on this path, we can't just develop psychic abilities.
Right.
We have to develop our character, our inner strength.
So it's about becoming more than just a seer,
Yes.
but like a truly integrated, ethical human being.
Exactly.
This is heavy stuff.
It is.
Okay, but before we delve deeper into those trials,
Okay.
you mentioned something else. The Guardian of the Threshold?
Right.
That sounds pretty ominous.
That's where things get really dramatic.
dramatic.
Yeah. Imagine reaching a certain point on your journey
Okay.
and suddenly coming face to face with a being
Okay.
formed from the unseen consequences of your past actions.
Wait, hold on. So it's like
That's the guardian of the threshold.
a manifestation of your karma staring you down.
You could say that,
No wonder it's called Guardian.
but it's not about punishment.
Okay.
Think of it more like a mirror,
Okay.
reflecting back the truth of who you are,
Yeah.
the impact of your choices.
Okay.
The guardian unveils those hidden aspects of ourselves, the good and the bad,
Right.
forcing us to confront our true nature.
This is blowing my mind.
It's pretty intense.
So are we ready to meet this Guardian? Or
Oh.
do we need a little more preparation first?
Maybe a bit more preparation wouldn't hurt,
Okay.
because facing the guardian is a turning point on this path.
I see.
It's where you're forced to make a crucial choice,
Mhm.
one with profound consequences.
Okay, now I'm really hooked.
Good.
But we'll have to save that part of the story for the next segment of our deep dive.
We will.
Don't go anywhere, listener, because things are about to get even more fascinating.
Stay tuned.
All right, so we're back,
We are back.
and we're ready to face this Guardian of the Threshold.
Yes.
Last time, we were talking about how Steiner's path to higher knowledge isn't just about, like, seeing things. It's
No.
about really, like, developing our inner character through these trials and confronting who we truly are.
Right. And encountering the guardian isn't just some like random event.
Okay.
It's a natural consequence of this inner development.
Okay, so the more tuned in we are,
Yeah.
the more likely we are to, like, bump into this Guardian.
You could say that.
Okay, but what does that encounter actually, like, entail?
Okay, so picture this. You've been working on yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Your perceptions are getting sharper. And then, boom, you come face to face with this being that embodies all the unseen consequences of your past actions,
No,
both good and bad.
that sounds intense.
It can be intense.
But you said it's not about punishment.
Right?
So what's the point of this, like, dramatic confrontation?
It's about self-knowledge.
Self-knowledge.
The guardian acts as a mirror,
Okay.
reflecting back the truth of who you are.
Right.
It's like having all those skeletons in your closet suddenly step out into the light.
Whoa. I can see how that would be both terrifying and incredibly illuminating at the same time.
Exactly.
But how does this encounter actually help us access higher knowledge?
To truly perceive the higher worlds, we need to see ourselves clearly,
Okay.
without illusion.
Right.
The guardian strips away those masks
Yeah.
we wear, forcing us to acknowledge our strengths and our weaknesses.
So it's about radical honesty.
Yes.
With yourself.
Yes.
Okay. But how does that translate into actually perceiving those higher worlds?
Think of it like cleaning a lens. You know,
Yeah.
the more dirt and grime you remove,
Mhm.
the clearer the image becomes
Right.
by confronting our shadows.
Yeah.
By acknowledging those parts of ourselves we'd rather not see.
Yeah.
We become more transparent to the subtle realities of the spiritual world.
Okay. I can see how that makes sense.
Good.
But Steiner also says the Guardian reveals something else.
Right.
These family, nation, and race spirits
Yes.
that have been unconsciously influencing us.
Mhm.
What's that all about?
It's about understanding that we're not just isolated individuals.
Right.
We're embedded in this web of relationships,
Okay.
both in the physical world and in the spiritual world.
Okay.
These spirits aren't ghosts or anything like that.
Right.
Think of them more like archetypal forces
Okay.
that shape the destinies of groups.
So like a collective soul
You could say that.
for a family or a nation.
Yeah.
Or even a race.
Exactly.
Oh,
And up until this point,
right.
we've been largely unconscious of their influence.
Okay.
But the Guardian brings those influences to light,
Yeah.
forcing us to make a choice.
Yeah. A choice? What kind of choice?
We can either continue serving those collective forces unconsciously,
Okay.
or we can choose to detach
Yeah, okay.
and pursue individual liberation.
Wow. So it's like, do you go with the flow of your family
Yes.
or nation's destiny, or do you strike out on your own path?
Right.
Even if it means going against the grain?
Exactly. And Steiner doesn't sugarcoat this at all.
Okay.
He calls this the choice between the black path
The black path.
and the white path.
Okay. Black path. Well, white path, those sound pretty loaded.
Yeah, they do a little bit.
What's the difference?
So the black path
Okay.
is the path of individual liberation.
Individual liberation.
It's about breaking free from those collective influences
Okay.
and focusing on your own spiritual development and transcendence.
So it's about putting your own spiritual growth first,
In a way, yes.
even if it means leaving others behind.
It's not necessarily about selfishness or egotism.
Okay.
It's more about recognizing that true liberation
Yeah.
can only come from within, not from conforming to external forces.
Okay. I can see the appeal of that.
Yeah.
But what about the white path?
The white path is the path of service.
Service.
It's about taking those insights
Okay.
gained through personal development
Mm-hmm.
and using them to help others to contribute to the evolution of humanity as a whole.
So instead of focusing on your own liberation,
Yeah.
you're choosing to stay engaged with the world to help others find their own path.
That's the essence of it.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that true spiritual growth is inextricably linked to the well-being of others.
Wow. This is a really tough choice.
I know.
Individual liberation versus service to humanity, it feels almost impossible to decide.
And that's the point.
Right.
There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
It's a deeply personal choice.
Right.
It depends on your individual karma, your level of development,
Mm.
and ultimately your soul's purpose.
Okay, so facing the Guardian is not just about confronting our past.
Right.
It's about choosing our future, our
Exactly.
path forward. How do we actually make this choice?
That's the question.
Is it a conscious decision, or is it more like an intuitive knowing?
It's a bit of both, actually.
Okay.
It's a choice made with your whole being.
Yeah.
Your head, your heart, your gut.
Right.
But it's not something you can force.
Okay.
It arises naturally from the work you've done,
Mhm.
the insights you've gained.
So it's like all that preparation we talked about earlier.
Exactly.
Contemplating nature, refining our thinking and feeling.
Yes.
It's all leading up to this moment of choice.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Because Steiner says that how you experience the world
Yeah.
after this encounter, after choosing your path,
Okay.
undergoes a profound shift.
Spill the beans. What kind of shift are we talking about?
He describes it as developing continuity of consciousness.
Continuity of consciousness, that sounds pretty abstract.
It is a little bit.
What does that actually mean in practical terms?
It's about moving beyond the fragmented nature
Okay.
of our ordinary waking consciousness.
Okay.
You know how we're constantly distracted?
Right.
Our attention jumping from one thing to another, and then we fall asleep
Right.
and lose awareness altogether.
It's like our consciousness is this flickering candle
Yes,
constantly being blown around by the wind.
that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
But Steiner says that as we progress on this path,
Okay.
that flickering flame starts to become steadier,
Okay.
more continuous.
So it's like the wind dies down
Yeah.
and the flame becomes this beacon
Yes.
shining more brightly and steadily.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that actually happen?
Well,
Is it about meditating more or practicing certain techniques?
it's partly that,
Okay.
but it's also a natural consequence of the inner work
Right.
we've been talking about.
Okay.
As we refine our soul organism
Yeah.
through those exercises and trials,
Hmm.
it starts to impact how we experience different states of consciousness.
Okay, so walk me through this. How does this continuity manifest
Okay.
in our daily lives?
It starts subtly.
Okay.
One of the first areas you might notice a change is in your dream life.
Dreams. So does that mean I'll finally stop having those weird, nonsensical dreams
Haha. Maybe not the penguins.
where I'm chasing penguins through a shopping mall or something?
Maybe not.
Okay.
But your dreams will likely become more vivid,
Okay.
more symbolic,
Okay.
and you'll start to remember them more clearly.
Does that mean I can start controlling my dreams?
It's not so much about conscious control
Okay.
as it is about developing a deeper understanding of the dream world. You
Right.
start to experience a kind of waking consciousness within the dream itself.
Wait, so you're aware that you're dreaming while you're dreaming?
Exactly.
That sounds pretty trippy.
It can be,
Yeah.
but it also allows you to work with your dreams in a new way,
Okay.
to glean insights and guidance from them.
So it's like those dreams become less random
Yeah.
and start to reveal something about yourself,
Right.
about the spiritual world.
Exactly. They become a source of wisdom, a way of connecting with those deeper levels of reality.
This is fascinating.
That is.
But you said the shift in consciousness isn't limited to dreams.
Right.
Where else does it show up?
Steiner says it eventually extends to what we normally consider like deep, dreamless sleep.
Wait, even that state where you're completely unconscious?
Yes.
How can you have any kind of awareness there?
It happens gradually.
Okay.
At first, those periods of unconsciousness are punctuated by brief moments of lucidity,
Okay.
like flashes of lightning in the darkness.
So it's like little sparks of consciousness are starting to ignite in the depths of sleep?
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And with continued practice, those sparks become brighter, more frequent,
Okay.
and eventually start to connect with each other.
Okay, so you're literally expanding your consciousness
Yeah.
into realms that were previously completely dark and inaccessible.
That's the idea.
Wow. But what's the point of being aware?
Good question.
In those deep states, what do you actually experience?
That's where things get really exciting.
Okay.
Steiner describes encountering spiritual beings and forces,
Okay.
perceiving the hidden connections between things,
Okay.
gaining a deeper understanding of the laws governing the cosmos.
Wow. That sounds almost overwhelming.
It can be,
Yeah.
which is why Steiner stresses the importance
Okay.
of approaching this path with humility and caution.
Right.
He warns against rushing to construct elaborate theories or systems
Okay.
based on those early glimpses.
So it's like you're a baby taking its first steps
Yes.
in a vast unknown world.
Exactly.
You need to be patient, observant, and avoid jumping to conclusions.
Exactly.
This is all incredibly profound.
It is.
But I have to admit, it also sounds a bit risky.
Yeah.
Steiner mentions encountering terrible powers.
Right.
And the possibility of using these newfound forces for selfish ends.
That's true.
That's a bit unnerving.
It is understandable to feel that way.
Yeah.
Steiner's very clear that there are real dangers on this path, especially if we let arrogance or impatience get the better of us.
So how do we avoid those pitfalls?
Yeah.
Is it all about having the right intentions?
It's partly that
Oh,
Steiner emphasizes the importance of cultivating qualities like humility, reverence,
Yeah.
and a deep respect for the spiritual world.
Yeah.
He also talks about the need for ethical development.
Ethical development. What do you mean by that?
It's interesting he's saying that it's not enough to simply develop extraordinary powers.
Right.
We also need to cultivate the wisdom
Okay.
and compassion to use them responsibly.
Right.
It's like, what's the point of scaling a mountain if you're just going to pollute the peak?
That's a powerful analogy.
It is.
So it's about aligning our inner development with a sense of purpose, of
Yes.
service to something greater than ourselves.
Exactly. Steiner repeatedly emphasizes that the goal of this path
Okay.
isn't personal power or aggrandizement.
Right.
It's about contributing to the evolution of humanity and the world.
That makes sense. But I'm still a bit unclear on how this inner transformation,
Okay.
this expansion of consciousness,
Yeah.
actually translates into action in the everyday world.
That's a key question.
Yeah.
And it's one that Steiner addresses in detail in the later chapters of the book.
Okay.
He talks about the need to transform the earth
Transform the earth.
by bringing the insights and forces gained in the spiritual realm
Okay.
back into the physical world.
So it's not about escaping reality?
Nope.
Or becoming some kind of otherworldly hermit?
Not at all.
Okay.
Steiner believed that true spiritual development
Yeah.
should lead to greater engagement with the world,
Right.
not withdrawal from it.
Okay.
It's about becoming a more effective,
Mhm.
compassionate, and insightful actor on the stage of life.
Okay, but how do we actually do that?
Right.
Do we start seeing auras around people?
It's not necessarily about those kinds of dramatic phenomena.
Okay.
Steiner describes it as a gradual process of inner refinement,
Okay.
where our actions, thoughts, and feelings
Right.
become more aligned with the laws and forces governing the spiritual world.
So we start to perceive the world differently,
Yes.
understand things on a deeper level, and that naturally leads to a different way of being in the world.
Precisely. And as we continue to develop those higher faculties,
Yeah.
we gain a greater capacity to influence the world in positive ways.
Okay. I'm starting to see the bigger picture here,
Good.
but I can't help but wonder, what are some of the specific challenges we
Right.
face as we start to integrate these higher experiences
Yes.
into our daily lives?
That's a good question. And it
Okay.
brings us to one of the most intriguing aspects
Okay.
of Steiner's teachings on spiritual development.
You mean that idea of the personality splitting?
Yes.
I have to say, that concept always intrigued me,
It is intriguing.
but also kind of freaked me out.
It definitely sounds dramatic.
Yeah.
But Steiner isn't talking about some kind of mental breakdown
Right.
or dissociative disorder or anything like that.
Okay.
He's describing a very specific process
Okay.
that occurs as we progress on the path to higher knowledge.
Okay, so explain this to me in layman's terms.
Okay.
What exactly is splitting,
Go ahead.
and why does it happen?
It's about those three fundamental forces of the soul: thinking, feeling, and willing.
Right.
In our normal everyday consciousness,
Okay.
they're all intertwined,
Mm-hmm.
operating as a unified whole.
Right.
But as we start to awaken those higher faculties,
Okay.
these forces begin to separate from each other.
So it's like, instead of being blended together,
Yeah,
they become more distinct, more independent.
exactly. And it starts in the subtler soul organism, our etheric body,
Okay.
and eventually even manifests in our physical body.
Okay, but why does this splitting need to happen?
That's a good question.
What's the purpose of separating these forces?
Steiner says it's because those soul forces are connected to specific fundamental forces in the universe.
Okay.
And in order to consciously work with those higher forces,
Mm-hmm.
those faculties need to become liberated
Okay.
from their normal interconnections.
So it's like, in order to play a specific note on a piano,
Yeah.
you need to press a single key, not a whole chord.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
By separating those forces, we gain a greater degree of control and precision in how we use them to interact with the spiritual world.
Right, but I can imagine that this process of splitting
Yes.
could be pretty disorienting, even disturbing, especially at first.
It definitely can be.
Yeah.
Steiner describes it as a challenging, even painful experience at times,
Yeah.
but he stresses that it's a necessary stage in our development
Okay.
and that it ultimately leads to a greater sense of freedom and mastery.
So what are some of the signs
Okay.
that this splitting is happening, and how do we navigate those challenges effectively?
Steiner says that one of the first signs is that your thinking, feeling, and willing
Okay.
start to operate more independently.
Okay.
You might find yourself experiencing conflicting emotions
Right.
or having thoughts that seem detached from your usual way of thinking.
Yeah.
You might even feel like you're observing yourself from a distance,
Mm.
like you're not fully in control of your own actions.
Okay. That sounds pretty intense.
It can be.
How do you deal with that kind of inner turmoil?
Steiner emphasizes the importance of maintaining a sense of calm and equanimity
Okay.
throughout this process.
Right.
He stresses the need for self-observation and understanding,
Okay.
for cultivating patience and compassion for yourself.
So it's like you need to become your own inner therapist,
Yeah, you could say that.
guiding yourself through those turbulent waters with wisdom and understanding.
Exactly. And it's not just about managing those inner challenges.
Right.
It's also about learning to use those newly liberated faculties responsibly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, as those soul forces become more independent,
Yeah.
they also become more potent, more capable of influencing the world around you.
Okay.
Steiner warns against misusing those powers for selfish ends
Right.
or acting out of ignorance.
So it's like, with great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly.
Mm.
And that's why Steiner repeatedly stresses the importance
Yeah.
of aligning our inner development with ethical principles.
Right.
With a deep sense of service to humanity and the world.
This all sounds incredibly complex and challenging,
It is.
but also incredibly inspiring.
Yeah.
It's like you're literally transforming yourself from the inside out,
Yeah.
becoming a more conscious, more powerful, more compassionate being.
That's the essence of Steiner's teachings.
Yeah.
And it's a journey that's available to anyone
Okay.
who's willing to put in the effort
Right.
and face those challenges with courage and humility.
This is a lot to think about.
It is.
Okay, but before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Okay.
let's bring it back to that concept of the personality splitting.
Right.
You mentioned that it eventually manifests even in the physical body.
Yes.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
And how do we manage those changes effectively?
That's where things get even more interesting.
Oh.
And it's something we'll explore in more detail in the next part of our deep dive.
Ooh, a cliffhanger.
Yes.
Our listeners are going to have to wait with bated breath
They will.
to hear what happens next on this incredible journey.
Until then, keep diving deep.
Okay, so we're back.
Back again.
and ready to explore this final frontier.
Yes,
How this personality splitting thing actually plays out in the physical body.
exactly.
Last time we were talking about how
Yes.
our thinking, feeling, and willing,
Mhm.
they start to like separate as we develop higher knowledge.
Yes, and this isn't just an abstract inner process either.
Right.
This has like real-world implications.
Yeah.
It even manifests in our physical experience.
Okay, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, so it's not like we're literally splitting into multiple people.
No, 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 not at all.
Okay.
It's much more subtle than that.
Okay.
Remember, Steiner emphasizes that our physical body isn't separate from our soul and spirit.
Right.
They're all interconnected.
Mm.
As we develop those higher faculties,
Yeah.
those changes ripple through our entire being,
Okay.
even down to the physical level.
Okay, so less about physical division,
Yes.
more about a kind of energetic shift.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that actually manifest? What kind of changes are we talking about?
Think about it this way. In our ordinary consciousness,
Yeah.
those soul forces of thinking, feeling, and willing were all kind of blended together.
Right.
But as we progress on this path,
Mm-hmm.
they become more distinct, more
Yeah.
individualized.
Right, like separating the instruments in an orchestra so you can hear each one more clearly.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
And Steiner says these differentiated soul forces start to gravitate
Okay.
towards different parts of the physical body.
Okay.
So the thinking faculty becomes more associated with the head,
Okay.
feeling with the heart and chest area,
Mm-hmm.
and willing with the limbs and metabolic processes.
So it's like those faculties, which were once all jumbled up together, start to find their own home in the body.
Exactly.
And as this process unfolds,
Yeah.
it can lead to some like interesting physical sensations.
It can.
Give me an example.
Someone who is strongly developing their thinking faculty might experience a heightened sensitivity in their head.
Okay.
They might feel a tingling sensation pressure or even headaches as their thinking becomes more refined and powerful.
So those aren't just random headaches. They
Wow.
could be a sign of spiritual growth.
Potentially,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that these experiences vary from person to person.
Right. Of course.
Not everyone will have the same physical sensations.
Right. Makes sense. What about the feeling faculty?
Okay.
How does that manifest in the body?
Someone focusing on their feeling life might experience a fluttering in their chest,
Okay.
a warmth spreading through their heart,
Yeah.
or even a feeling of expansion in that area.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like the heart is literally opening up,
Yes,
becoming more sensitive and receptive.
exactly.
What about the will? How does that manifest physically?
With the will, it's less about specific sensations
Okay.
and more about a change in overall energy levels
Okay.
and how you move through the world. You might find yourself feeling more energized, more grounded,
Yeah.
more capable of taking decisive action.
So it's like your willpower literally becomes more embodied.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And this can have a profound impact on your ability to bring your intentions into reality.
Okay.
It's not just about thinking or feeling something.
Right. Yeah.
It's about having the energy and drive to actually make it happen.
This is all incredibly fascinating.
It is.
But I have to admit, it also sounds a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
How do you manage all these changes
Well,
without like losing your balance?
That's where Steiner's emphasis on a conscious and disciplined approach becomes so important.
Okay.
He stresses that we need to develop these faculties harmoniously,
Okay.
in balance with each other.
So it's not about focusing exclusively on one faculty
Right.
at the expense of the other.
Exactly. Forcing the development of one faculty while neglecting the others can lead to all sorts of imbalances,
Yeah.
both physically and psychologically.
Right. It's like trying to run a marathon by only training your legs.
Exactly.
You need to develop your whole your whole being
Yeah.
to reach your full potential. But how do we actually do that?
Right.
Are we talking about specific exercises?
Yeah.
Or is it more about a general awareness of how these forces are playing out in your life?
It's a bit of both.
Okay.
Steiner provides specific exercises and meditations to help us develop each faculty.
Okay.
But he also stresses the importance of careful self-observation and reflection.
So it's like you're a gardener tending to a delicate ecosystem.
That's a beautiful analogy.
You need to understand the needs of each plant, provide the right conditions for growth, and make adjustments as needed.
Exactly. And just like a garden, this process takes time, patience,
Right.
and a willingness to learn and adapt.
Mm-hmm.
There will be setbacks.
Yeah.
There will be challenges.
Of course.
But the rewards are well worth the effort.
This has been an incredible deep dive.
It has.
We've covered so much ground,
We have.
from contemplating lotus flowers to navigating trials,
What?
to confronting the guardian of the threshold, and even exploring this mind-bending concept of personality splitting.
It's been a pleasure diving into Steiner's work with you.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to remember that this is just a taste of what he has to offer.
right.
There's so much more to explore in his writings and lectures.
We'll definitely have to do another deep dive sometime.
We will.
But for our listener who's been with us on this incredible journey, what's the most important takeaway?
I think the most important takeaway is that developing higher knowledge is a conscious, demanding,
Yeah.
but ultimately transformative journey.
Right.
It's not a quick fix or a magical shortcut.
Yeah.
It requires dedication, discipline,
Right.
and a deep commitment to ethical and spiritual growth.
So no magic wands or instant enlightenment,
Unfortunately not.
just steady inner work
Exactly.
and a willingness to face those inevitable challenges along the way.
That's the path to true knowledge, according to Steiner. It's a path of self-discovery, of service to the world,
Right.
and ultimately of awakening to our true nature as spiritual beings.
And that, my friend, is a journey worth taking.
It is.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Rudolf Steiner. Keep exploring,
Yes.
keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.